Today's lesson is, should we give green energy the green light? Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to continue talking about green energy. But should we give green energy the green light? Should we go ahead and start committing to green energy? Well, we could have given you our answer to this question in our article, but instead we chose to hear some opinions from different people from different walks of life. We heard from Tom, who's a teacher. He likes green energy. Maria likes it too, but she thinks current power sources are more reliable because she works in a hospital. And we also heard from Eva, who's an engineer, and she kind of has the same opinion as Maria does.
That's right. So today we're going to meet 5 other people. Sam, Miguel, Jake, Helen, and Lily, all of varying ages and in different types of jobs, different stages in their lives as well. So we're going to find out exactly what they think about this debate between green energy and fossil fuels or renewable energy versus non-renewable. Let's get into the first part of the article when we'll hear from 2 more people and get their opinions on this interesting topic.
Sam, 20, student.
I live near a coal power plant, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's caused a lot of health problems for people in my area. I wish the government would tear it down. I wouldn't mind converting to viable green energy sources. Then my family and I could breathe clean air again.
Miguel, 55, truck driver.
I don't have time to wait around all day while my truck charges. Gas is cheap and filling up is quick. If you want your stuff to arrive in a timely manner, you can forget all that green energy nonsense.
大家好，第一部分我们来看到片语 tear down， 意思是拆毁或是拆除点点点。例如 The government planned to tear down illegal constructions in this city. 政府计划拆除这座城市的违法建筑。又或者说 Workers tore down the factory to make way for a shopping mall. 工人拆掉了那座工厂，好挪空间来盖购物商场。接下来介绍动词 convert， 它指的是使改变、转变或是改造。例如 After the kids moved out, Jill and Mo converted the extra bedrooms into home offices. 孩子们搬出去后 Jill 和 Mo 将多余的卧室改造成居家办公室。或者 The record label converted several old analog recordings to digital. 那家唱片公司把好几张类比录音老唱片数位化。再来看到 viable， 它是形容词，意思是确实可行的、可实施的或是可以存活的。举例来说 At this point, buying a house is just not financially viable for me. 目前在经济方面上买房子对我来说是不可行的。
Okay, so first we're going to hear Sam's opinion. He's a young boy. He's 20 years old. He's a student. And here's what he says. I live near a coal power plant, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. So that doesn't sound good. He lives near a power plant that is fired by coal. And here he's got an interesting phrase here. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. In other words, I wouldn't want other people to experience what I have experienced because what I've experienced is really bad, and I really don't want anybody else to have this experience as well.
Could also even say in a more strong way, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So even the person I hate the most in the world, this is so bad, I wouldn't want them to have to experience it. So it's a really bad thing. We can understand that living near a coal power plant. Why? Well, he explains, it's caused a lot of health problems for people in my area. Of course, the coal that's burned, the smoke from that burning, from firing that coal in the power plant there, it will affect the air and the land and the water in the area. And of course, the people and animals in the area will breathe it in. So we could imagine there would be higher rates of like lung cancer and other different dangerous poisons in the ground or in the water in that area. It would lead to a lot of health problems for people. And I imagine also for animals, especially like farm animals and things like that. So it's just not good and healthy to live near one of these places that burn these fossil fuels. He says, I wish the government would tear it down. I wish the government would close it down, get rid of of it. And he uses this more expressive way of talking about closing it down, tear it down, not just close it, not just shut it down as a facility and stop it from burning coal, but just get rid of it, knock it down, turn it into a park, turn it into something else. I don't want to see it anymore, and I certainly don't want to live near it. What is his idea? He says, I wouldn't mind converting to viable green energy sources. He wants to go green. Of course, he's had a very direct experience with fossil fuels, and he thinks that is not the way. He would like to convert or to change. When you convert, you change from one thing to another. He wouldn't mind. He would be quite happy to change or to convert to viable green energy sources. That's interesting. He uses the word viable. So he's not talking about sort of future technology. He's not talking about getting power from the moon or something like that. No, something that's viable. It's workable. It's realistic. It's practical. So things like solar panels on his house, things like wind turbines, wind generators in the fields in the neighborhood, things like that. Then, he says, my family and I could breathe clean air again. He would love to do that, replace all of the fossil fuel burning power stations for renewable energy, green energy, healthy energy in his mind, and that would allow his family and him and his neighbors to breathe clean air again, none of that smoky coal smoke, coal pollution that they are currently forced to breathe coming out of that power station in their neighborhood.
Well, that may be well and good, but some coal miners may not like that idea because if we're not going to use coal anymore, they may be out of a job. But, of course, we've got different opinions that we're talking about today. Let's move on now to Miguel, who is 55 years old, and he's a truck driver. He's 55. He's a little older, so he has a little more experience. And he's a truck driver. He delivers things by driving a truck. Here's what he has to say. I don't have time to wait around all day while my truck charges. Gas is cheap and filling up is quick. If you want your stuff to arrive in a timely manner, you can forget all that green energy nonsense. Okay, so he's a truck driver, and he's used to relying on his truck, his 18-wheeler, as we say. And, of course, gasoline is cheap, and filling up is quick. Gas here is just short for gasoline, and if you're a truck driver, you're driving long distances, and gasoline, of course, will let you drive for quite a long time, so it's reliable. It's cheap still, even though prices are going up, it's still relatively cheap. And if you want to fill up, well, it's quick, at least compared to charging batteries for an electric vehicle. So he's got a point here. Filling up is quick. If you go to a gas station and you want to buy gasoline, you might say, hey, fill her up. Fill her up with unleaded.
There you go. And yes, it would take a few minutes to do that and not a few hours as it might take to recharge an electric truck. He says, if you want your stuff to arrive in a timely manner, you can forget all that green energy nonsense. So there you go. For truck drivers, for delivery drivers, it really is a matter of the clock. Time is literally money for them. And he's kind of turning it around and saying it's not just convenient for me and my job, but for you who just order things off, Amazon or ordered food delivery or something. If you want those things to get to your house quickly and efficiently in a timely manner, or soon, in other words, you can forget all that green energy nonsense. Yeah, if the trucks on the road had to be recharging 2 or 3 hours a day instead of driving a full 8 hours or 9 hours, they're only driving 5 or 6 hours, everything would slow down. 1-day delivery, 3-day delivery, all that kind of stuff. Forget about it. Things will not be arriving in a timely manner. So, if you want things to be delivered efficiently and quickly, you can forget all that green energy nonsense. This is kind of an expression of a way of saying all that crazy stuff about that thing that I don't like or don't agree with. Okay, so all that green energy nonsense, if you're trying to convince your older relative to come on an adventure holiday, you can take all that bungee jumping nonsense. I just want to sit by a pool with a cocktail in my hand. I don't want any of that stuff you're talking about. It's crazy talk and I don't want any part of it. That's kind of what he's saying here. That green energy nonsense, all that talk about clean electric Tesla trucks, blah, blah, blah. It's going to take 6 hours to charge them after only driving 200 miles. I need to find me a gas station. I need a big diesel truck. That's the way to go.
Let's move on now to hear some more opinions in part 2. We're going to hear from Jake, who's a construction worker, and Helen, who is an architect. Let's listen.
Jake, 44, construction worker.
Our building sites need strong, reliable energy. Can't build without it. I think renewables are too unpredictable, especially in this part of the country. We get so little sun here, and the idea of powering our city with solar power is a joke.
Helen, 29, architect. At my company, we're already thinking up ways to integrate solar panels into a building's design. Our reports show that in sunny areas, these panels create lots of usable, clean energy, and residents love them. Green energy is the future.
第二部分介绍 unpredictable 这个形容词指的是无法预测的或是难以预料的。可以说 Andy's mood is unpredictable. He can be laughing 1 minute and crying the next. Andy 的心情难以捉摸，他可能前1分钟还在笑，结果下1分钟就哭了。再看一个例子 Police officers were wary of the criminal because of his unpredictable behavior. 由于那名罪犯的行径难以预料，警员小心提防。再来我们看到 integrate 表示使融入、合并或是使成为体。例如 The composer integrates both classical and modern styles in his pieces. 那位作曲家将古典和现代风格融合在他的作品中。或是 The company integrated free childcare into its employee benefits package. 该公司把免费托育服务并入员工福利方案。
Okay, first of all, we're going to hear from Jake, who is 44. He's middle-aged, and he's a construction worker. And here's what he says. Our building sites need strong, reliable energy. Can't build without it. I think renewables are too unpredictable, especially in this part of the country. We get so little sun here, and the idea of powering our city with solar power is a joke. So here Jake is a construction worker. He's more working class, so he's kind of against renewable energy. He says we need strong, reliable energy to make these buildings that we're constructing, and we can't build without that reliable energy. He says renewables are too unpredictable. If something's unpredictable, you just don't know what's going to happen. So they're not reliable at all, like renewable sources of power like solar power and wind power. You just never know if it's going to be a sunny or windy day. So yes, those forms of energy are unpredictable, whereas fossil fuels, they're still more reliable at the present time. Let's move on now to hear what Helen has to say. She's 29 years old, and she's an architect. She says, at my company, we're already thinking up ways to integrate solar panels into a building's design. So here, I think she's in support of renewable energy. She works for a company as an architect, and she says their company are already thinking up ways to integrate solar panels into a building's design. So if you integrate something, you use that thing together with something else. So in this particular case, they're building a building, but they're going to include solar panels in that building, and that may help generate electricity not only for the building itself, but also possibly for the surrounding area.
Very, very interesting. Our reports show that in sunny areas, these panels create lots of usable, clean energy, and residents love them. Green energy is the future, says Helen. Okay, so she is very big on green energy, a big supporter of it. And she's, again, here talking about the weather being a very important factor in sunny areas, Southern California, Arizona, southern Taiwan. These areas are mainly sunny, get a lot of sun each year. And so the solar panels create lots of usable, clean energy. So you can turn that heat through the solar panels into electricity. It's clean, you're not burning anything or producing any pollution. And residents, the people who live there, they love them, all right? Because maybe their power bills are lower. They don't have to have a big generator in their house in some place that takes up space. They can keep all the solar panels on the roof, which they don't use anyways, so they don't see this stuff. And it creates all this wonderful free, clean energy. So the people who live there, the residents, the local people, they love them. Green energy for her is the future. All right, a strong booster there of green energy in general. Helen, the 29-year-old architect. And we have one more person, the oldest of the bunch, maybe the wisest of the bunch. Lily will be back in the final part of our article and interview.
Lily, 77, retiree. Where I live, they've covered all of our hills with huge windmills for generating energy. They've completely destroyed the view. They also make so much noise and have negative impacts on birds' ecology.
第三部分，最后我们来看到名词 retiree， 它的意思是退休人士。举例来说 ，retirees often struggle to find activities to keep them occupied。退休人士常常很难找到让自己有事可做的活动。最后一个例子 ，Edward still helps his former colleagues a lot, even though he is a retiree。尽管 Edward 已经退休，但他仍会大力帮助他的前同事。
Okay, so we're going to talk now about Lily's opinion on this topic. She's a retiree, which means she is retired. She's no longer working. She is retired. Maybe she's still doing volunteer work and stuff like that, but she still has her opinion here. She says, where I live, they've covered all of our hills with huge windmills for generating energy. Again, that's wind power, and of course, if you need wind power, you need to have a windmill, or more specifically, you need a wind turbine, which again are quite plentiful on the west coast of Taiwan. I've seen quite a few of them there, especially around Hsinchu, where it is very windy. But of course, some people may think that those are an eyesore. She says here they've completely destroyed the view. I don't like looking out the window every day and seeing those big windmills or those wind turbines. They've completely destroyed the view. They are an eyesore.
All right, so she had a lovely view of the sea or maybe across some lovely farmers' fields, but now she has these big wind turbines there, and she doesn't like how they look. They've ruined the landscape for her. They also make so much noise and have negative impacts on birds' ecology. I've heard this from people who live near some of these wind turbines. They do make noise as they spin around 24 hours a day, so that could bother certain people. And there also have been reports of negative impacts or bad effects on birds' ecology. Birds can sometimes fly into the windmills, and of course those huge fins on the windmill, they can hit the birds and kill them. But I've also heard a lot of birds die flying into glass skyscrapers and things like that. It would also depend on where, right? Certain areas birds are traveling through in much larger numbers. But yes, they could have an effect on the local bird ecology. The ecology, of course, is the environment and how animals fit into it. So the birds that are nesting in the area or traveling through the area on their annual migrations north and south in fall and winter and spring and summer, they could have bad run-ins with some of these windmills. They could be injured or killed. And for the people who live around them and have to see these dying birds on the ground, yeah, that could be an upsetting type of thing you wouldn't want around you. But then again, the coal power plant, it might be poisoning you through the water that you drink. So maybe you're seeing one thing that is actually much less worse than the other thing that you don't see, the air you're breathing in by the coal power station. I don't know. It's a very interesting and controversial topic. That's why it's always something that we are fascinated to hear people's opinions on.
And there you have it. We've heard lots of opinions from different people, and maybe you can offer your own opinions as well. That brings us to the end of our explanation. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第一部分 D 选项是20岁的 Sam， 他是一名学生。那他有说到一句 I wouldn't mind converting to viable green energy sources。 我不介意改成可行的绿能资源。我们这边先补充一下 mind 当动词它有介意的意思，常常会用在否定句或是疑问句里。Wouldn't mind 或者是 don't mind 再加上动词 ing 就可以表达不介意做某事。例如 I don't mind waiting a few more minutes， 我不介意再等几分钟。好，那也可以用 Would you mind 或者是 Do you mind 加上动词 ing 来提出请求，询问对方你介意做某事吗？例如 Would you mind turning down the TV？ 你介意把电视的音量调小吗？好，那另外呢，文中它用到动词 convert 这个字，它有改变、使改变转变，或是改造、使改变信仰等等的意思。那我们来学习它的字首字根，看到 vers 或是 vert 这两个字根有转动、翻转或是变动的意思。那带有这一类字根的字大多含有改变原状的语义。在 convert 这个字当中，字首 con 表示 together 一起，那么字根 vert 是指转 turn， 全部一起翻转变动，应该可以去联想到 convert 它有改变转变的意思。我们也补充几个有这一类字根的单字。第一个补充的是 invert invert， 那它的字首 in 表示在点点点之中或是在点点点之上，字根 vert 表示翻转。那当我们把东西内外或是上下翻转，它就会前后倒置或是上下颠倒。用这个方式也许可以联想到 invert 它有使倒置或是使颠倒的意思。第二个补充的是 divert 或是念作 divert， 它的字首 di 表示分离，从什么什么，那么字根 vert 表示转，我们可以用转移到旁边来联想divert 它有使转向、使改道或者是转移向转移注意力这类的意思。第三个补充的是 versatile 或是念作 versatile， 它的字根 vers 表示转，at 是来自动词字尾 ate 表示使成为，那么 ile 是形容词字尾，表示具有某种能力。所以我们从这个字根字尾的表面意思来看， versatile 它是指具有那种转变变动的能力，也就是具有多变的能力。从这个语义它又再带出那种多才多艺的意思咯。好，那以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Convert。After learning about the health benefits, Janice decided to convert to a plant-based diet. Viable. Although it will be difficult, the team is determined to find a viable way to finish the project in time. Nonsense. Tommy's story about seeing a ghost sounded like complete nonsense. Unpredictable. The weather in the mountains is unpredictable, with sudden changes that can catch hikers off guard. Integrate.We need to figure out how to integrate the new software into the existing system. Resident. As a long-time resident of the town, Cheryl actively participates in the planning of various local events. Ecology. Building a road along the coast could have negative effects on the ecology of animals in the area.
Discussion starter starts now.
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, what renewable energy sources do you think would be most suitable for Taiwan?
Well, given its location, I think the ideal renewable energy sources for Taiwan are solar power, which is obvious, and I believe Taiwan could be a real world leader in ocean tidal power, harnessing the power of the waves. We have a pretty powerful waves, especially on our east coast there, and it's one of those things that I've heard about for a long time, tidal power, getting water power, but from the ocean tides and waves, but no country's really kind of gone forward on that too much, and I think Taiwan would have a unique place. And there's a lot of smart people here, too.
I agree. Well, given that Taiwan is a highly advanced country in terms of technology, I think that the ideal renewable energy sources for Taiwan are hydrogen power and nuclear fusion. Nobody likes nuclear fission because we can have nuclear accidents and kill a lot of people, but if we figure out how to do nuclear fusion, we should have no problem, and there's plenty of hydrogen to go around to fuse all those hydrogen atoms together to create boundless amounts of energy.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.